Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Mindset Breakthrough Show. Today's guest, I'm thrilled to have Angie Colee. She is the host of Permission to Kick Ass podcast, which you should definitely check out. It's all about like the kind of behind the scenes stories entrepreneurs have, like the ones that they don't share in their webinars and all that stuff of the like, oh, I just talked about how my business is going great, yet secretly everything in my life is crumbling apart. That kind of stuff, which is a delightful theme. And she's also a badass consultant for copywriting and marketing and launching. Like, if you want to do simple launches, just get shit out the door without all the stress. She's totally the person to go to for that. And also she's got other great systems for like finding extra money that's just laying around in your business that people overlook. So yeah, can't recommend Angie's marketing brain enough. She's also a coach for freelance copywriters because she just does all the things, and is a great singer. So, okay, Angie, thanks for coming along.
Me.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we were talking about this breakthrough that you had, which I believe it was hypnotherapy. Yeah,
hmm
cool.
Was, and it's interesting. I'll just jump right in.
Yeah,
Because I was a little bit of a skeptic to hypnotherapy, but you and I have been coaching, like you've been my coach for a couple years, and I've been part of like a mastermind group for business owners that's run by a psychotherapist. So I've like had many kinds of therapy and been slowly unraveling some of the head crash and the past stuff in my life. I realized that I was still suffering in some aspects, in the sense that like were things that I knew were problems. They were still coming up over and over and over again. So when my business partner, who's actually a therapist, was like, I'm sensing some deeper level issues to this resistance that's popping up. Would you be interested in trying a session? Suddenly my resistance went like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's try it. I've been doing all of these coaching and like this stuff keeps popping up. So like, let's see if hypnotherapy will help.
like
And I'm
what was
so
the
glad I
stuff that
did.
was popping up?
This idea of like, I'm not good enough. Nobody wants this. I'm just fooling myself. Like, who the hell are you to take the stage and seek the spotlight? You're nobody.
Yep.
And like, those were the voices that I kept hearing. And I'm like, oh, and I think you and I have talked about this before. Like, I couldn't understand that dichotomy of there's part of me that I know really wants to be up on it. Give me a microphone. This is my happy place. I want to be on stage. You can probably tell from how animated I am on just a Zoom call that that's just my happy place. And you're a performer too. So you know this particular kind of joy for those of us that are performers. But as soon as I would say, give me the mic, I want to be on stage, that's my happy place, this other voice would kick in and be like, how dare you? Don't ever do that. Nobody wants to see that. This is bullshit stuff. I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't ask if we could swear or not, but
Yeah, you can.
so that's, I was like, all right, I got to figure out where that's coming from and why that keeps popping up. That like almost instantaneously when that desire pops up, this no, you can't thing
Yep.
does. So we had the session in two parts, and the first part really made me cry. And I don't say that to like scare you, but like I was crying because I was really surprised. So, like, how deep do you want me to go into like what happens?
As deep as you feel comfortable.
So, she had me like, and we did it all via Zoom, which I thought was fascinating. I always
Yeah.
pictured that you had to like be in the office on the cushy couch or whatever, but we did it via Zoom. And she did have me set up my laptop to where she could see me resting on the couch, like she could watch my breathing and things like that. So she did this visualization exercise, and honestly, I don't remember most of it because hypnotherapy. But what I do remember was that she kept pushing me to go, okay, so where's the first instance that you remember thinking or receiving this message? Okay, go back further, go back further. Kept going back in time in my mind to my earliest memories until we got to the first one, or what feels like the first one to me, which was when I was 9 years old, hearing from my stepmother, basically, how dare you? You're not good enough. Nobody wants to hear that. Stop doing that. Like, and the interesting thing for me was it was like that aha moment. Like if you picture that movie where somebody's in their mind and then they like snap back to present in their body and go, wow, wow, suddenly a whole lot is clear. Like I came back, out of the trance in like with tears in my eyes because the thought that was in my conscious mind as soon as I came out of it was, holy crap, it's not me. That's not my voice. So when that desire pops up to like get on the stage and take the mic and be the performer, just because that's what you want to do and that brings you joy. Um, that voice that's popping up in response to that and saying, you can't do that, who the hell are you? That's not me. Somebody else entirely. So what I loved about that was she goes, okay, are you ready for the really cool part? And I was like, yeah, I am really cool for I'm ready for the next part. She goes, the next part is about letting go of all that. And I was like, okay, cool. So she's like, we'll give it like a day. So I had like the rest of the day to process, at which point, when I was doing some journaling, I realized I could see that pattern popping up again and again in my life, especially with romantic relationships,
Yeah.
where it was like I was choosing people unconsciously that were never going to give me that approval that I wanted from her back then. And that would, like, to say that was a light bulb moment is probably a gross understatement. It just brought into light almost instantly so much of the like unconscious ways I've held myself back with these
Yeah.
beliefs that I thought were mine that weren't even mine. So we did our second session, and she had me do this visualization where my stepmom and I were alone in a cabin and we got to talk. And the whole goal of it was she couldn't respond. I got to say everything that I needed to say, that I wanted to say for, the better part of 30 years. And I honestly surprised myself because I always thought that if in my fantasy, right, if we get in a room, I'm just going to lay into her. I'm going to tell her everything that I feel, and I'm going to like go off on this woman because that's what she deserves. And instead, what I wound up doing was an incredible amount of compassion and understanding. I surprised
Mm.
myself. That was not how I intended to go into that like visualization. I said things like, I'm sorry that whatever happened in your life impacted you to the point, like hurt you to the point that you thought that this was okay, like this was a cool message to send to a child. I'm sorry that you weren't able, for whatever reason, to model healing and loving and support. And mostly, I'm sorry for imagine how different your life could be if you had believed in me, because I'm going places. Like you could have been part of that, but you chose not to for whatever reason. So, and then the next part of that visualization was imagining that there was like a cord that had been connecting us heart to heart,
Mm.
it and telling her goodbye. I don't need this anymore. And she's no longer my stepmom. She hasn't been for a while, but so I put that tie between us in my mind and had, whoo, it still makes me a little bit misty eyed to think about it. Another thing that I didn't know or think was going to happen with hypnotherapy was that I had a powerful vision, like a daydream or a dream almost. Um, Little 9-year-old Angie looked like a little Tinkerbell fairy, came flying up to me and gave me a hug and said, "We got our magic back." Woo! And if you know me and you know what a big Disney nerd I am, I'm still wearing my favorite Jack Skellington hoodie. This is actually a Disney shirt too, Expedition Everest. Um, having that pop up was just, we got our magic back. Woo!
Yeah. That's crazy. So
Hmm.
then, yeah. So what's been the impact like kind of since then? So you're saying before, like there's that voice in your head, like, who are you to do that? No one wants to hear from you, that kind of stuff. How has that been since that experience?
That recognition that it wasn't even mine has been the key to unlocking all of this. Because that
Mm.
voice still pops up from time to time, but I know now that it's because those neural pathways, thinking those like habitually
Yeah.
all this time over years means that that's still going to pop up from time to time, right? It's not a magic fix. I didn't fix my entire life in 2 sessions,
What? We're
but
done here.
we're done. Just two
What's
sessions of
the point of
hypnotherapy.
any of this?
But like I
um,
recognized that this isn't quite over, but that's
yeah.
not me. So now every time I go, here's a thing that I want to do that has me really excited, and that voice pops up and goes, "Who the hell are you to do this?" I go, "You're not. That's not me. That's
Yeah.
somebody else's
Is
issue,"
is
and
it
I let it
like
go.
when that voice comes up, is it less loud or less triggering, like less of an emotional like urge tied to it, or is it the
All of
same
the
in
above.
okay.
All of the like, it's an instant awareness. Like, here's the thing I want to do. Here's all the reasons that you can't do that. Before that used to be like the start of a spiral
Yeah.
where I'd be going out of control and crying and like, who the hell do you think you are? But now it's just like, no, that's not me. And
Okay.
my partner has been crucial in helping me realize, because I always used to qualify it. I want to be on the stage because I could do so much good from that platform. And she goes, I want to be on the stage. Period.
Yeah.
Period. That's enough. And I was like,
Yeah. It's enough to
okay,
just want something yourself. It doesn't have to be like at the betterment of everyone else, and I must
yes,
be completely altruistic at all times. Otherwise, I'm a selfish piece of shit or whatever.
yes,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you count too. And what you want matters also. Cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then how did this compare? Because we were talking just a bit before of like had you done talk therapy like around the same subject or just in other traumas, or like what was kind of your experience of hypnotherapy
Hmm.
versus talk therapy?
I did a lot of talk therapy when I was trying to leave an abusive relationship. So, like
Mm,
relationship counseling and whatnot. And the challenge there was, first of all, it like wasn't with a consistent therapist over time. And I
mm,
know that my ex, being the controlling person that he was therapist shopping. Like he was trying to get us to different therapists. So he got one that said what he wanted to hear and then like use that to keep me to stay. But I felt like every time that I was getting to know a new therapist, it was just like ripping off that scab and starting to bleed again and not actually getting many tools to start the healing process and make some decisions.
mm.
A lot of that changed for me after a different relationship dissolved a couple years ago. And I entered the mastermind that I mentioned that's run by a psychotherapist. I jokingly call it group therapy for entrepreneurs. She hates when I do that, but I love it. Um, and she's helped us realize kind of in a similar vein, and I think that was the foundational work that made this hypnotherapy so effective. But she
Yeah.
got me started down that path of there are stories that we get from people around us, from the media, from society at large, even from ourselves, and like interpretations of different scenarios that aren't necessarily accurate. And you've got to be able to recognize when that story is yours versus somebody else, and then like try to rewrite the story for yourself. So I think doing that foundational work for the last 2 years is what like, and then that hypnotherapy session came in and just like
Yeah.
shattered it all.
I love that point because sometimes it can just seem like it's all about finding the right person and the right method and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of the times, like, yeah, that's all great and important. And it's all like a lot of times just based on the work you've done before that prepares you for that can then make like a wider range of things more like impactful just because you've done a certain amount of like foundational work and you're ready for kind of those big hit moments.
Exactly. I thought like being ready for it, because that same message can pop up over and over and over again. But until you have the skills and the tools to recognize what it's trying to tell you, it's just like you're going to just repeat those patterns over and over again, which is
Yeah.
what I've done for most of my life. So
Yeah. And then sorry, I just had a question and then it flew out
go
of my
for it.
head. So everyone go reheat your cup of coffee or whatever while I think of what I was just about to say. Oh yeah. The impact of like okay, so you talk about like the voice in your head that isn't yours kind of gets lessened. And then so like what did that make possible? Like what were some of the things you were able to do as a result? Or like how's your life changed because of that?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, this is at the risk of making it sound like, the mythological hockey stick that we talk about in growth. Um, right after that, my business partner and I launched basically four different offers at the same time. I introduced her to 45 people that I know, even though I was scared, like, who am I to sell this? Like, we can't do this. Nobody wants this. Still had those fears popping up, but was able to better like just, okay, going to put you on a shelf for now. Don't have to think this thought. Um, she took that and ran with it and generated a little over $60,000 worth of sales in the last couple weeks, or just a couple
Woo!
weeks after that, which meant that we had to build four programs on the fly. But now we're kind of on the other side of that flurry. And all of this happened recently, just, unlocking that belief that, yeah, I can be this person and I can be on the stage and I can be the expert that I want to be. Um, really, really helped with letting go of some of that self-sabotaging behavior.
I am pumped, especially because we talked like 2 weeks ago and it was a mere 30 grand of
Yeah.
this yeah, get Angie while you can because her shit's exploding and it's really good.
Yeah,
Um
we just closed another a $30,000 contract earlier this week, so that was what happened.
okay. Yeah, and I think, and that's like, I like these kind of conversations because it would be very easily, and who knows, maybe there'll be a sales page one day of the inside flip this one little switch and then it led to 60 grand. And it's like, yes. And like you
And
did a lot of work to get your business in that place where then, like, once again, like you did that foundational work in your life to have that switch, and in your business to be at this point where once you put this thing out, it's exploded because everyone knows how great you are and you've got this massive track record of ass kicking. um
mhm. And it
yeah,
really helps that my partner and I have like complementary skill sets, and also went into this partnership saying friends first. Whatever happens in the
yeah,
business, we keep our relationship. So like we very much talk each other off ledges, help each other with tools where we see somebody the other one is struggling. And like all of that, we talked about our businesses in an accountability group for the better part of a year before we suddenly realized, wait a second. Maybe we should be working together. Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Okay, let's try this.
nice. Do you want to, I don't think you shared the name of the hypnotherapist, if you want to pimp
Her
them a
name is
bit.
Chris Clay, and she's also my business partner. She does and she doesn't even call it hypnotherapy because she knows and I know what kind of stigma
Yeah,
some of us skeptics have toward hypnotherapy. She calls it neuronarrative transformation, and like you'll notice that same thread of dismantling the stories. Get in your head somehow through no fault of your own, just by
yeah,
being alive and being aware and being bombarded by stuff constantly,
totally.
and just figuring out where that comes from and learning how to let it go.
Yeah. And I think one last question, like, sometimes I think sometimes people have these big breakthroughs
Hmm.
from whatever thing, whether it's like a meditation retreat or like just therapy or whatever, and then, or like some work, personal development workshop, they have a big breakthrough, and then they, like, it doesn't lead to any actual change. Like, how has it been, like, applying this breakthrough, and like, or is it just that your business was at a point where once that was gone you could just keep going with what you wanted to do, and like the results of applying the breakthrough kind of happened, or was there any other like ways that made you able to like actually apply the breakthrough into your life?
It's a little bit of all of the above, and I think that connects to, we were talking about the mastermind run by a psychotherapist. That's Dr. Julie Helm of Iron Psych. If you're interested, I can't speak more highly of the work that she does as well. And she runs a story camp if you want to like get your feet wet and spend a weekend with her. Um, but she introduced this, like, it's not enough to think about it. It's not enough to read about it. At some point, and her particular method works for me, which is like you've got to ask yourself the question, you've got to journal about it and kind of organize your own thoughts around it, and then you've got to have a supportive dialogue with somebody else that can hear where you're coming from without the judgments,
Mm,
and like reflect some things back to you. I know that like we make this joke so many times when you and I are in our coaching sessions, where as soon as I say something out loud, you'll answer with a question like, well, is that true? And I go, well, when you put it that way. So like that
yeah,
whole process of being able to like, and even after that session that I had, where Tinkerbell Angie came out, I did a lot of journaling about like what is this bringing up for me, which led to that realization with my relationships. And then I was talking with trusted people and going, here's what I learned, here's what I see, what do you see? They would reflect this stuff back to me. You would reflect this stuff
cool,
back to me as my
yeah,
coach. And that really just helped me realize, okay, so this is a neural pathway that we're going to fill in with dirt, and we're going to create this other shiny one that works a lot better for me and helps me
nice.
believe in myself. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. Is just like what happens after the breakthrough? Because I think
Hmm.
there's this idea that, yeah, breakthrough happens and then it's all magic, and that's what a lot of people will write copy about and kind of
Yep.
promote. And it's like, but there is like a kind of like implementation set like afterwards of like, yeah, how you apply it, how you carry it with you, how you like then use it, so you don't just like
Hmm.
end up having a very similar life, only now one thing kind of bugs you a bit less. Like,
Yeah. Like the I guess the best analogy that I have is how often so many of us wind up with our phones in our hand doing Lord knows what before we're even consciously aware we're
yeah,
on our phone surfing. Like it's such a habit. And I think that's the way to think of the behavior that you had before the breakthrough, is it's still to some extent a habit. It's
yeah,
still what is the easiest thought pathway in your brain. And there's still going to have to be some additional work to undo that. Like I said, after that breakthrough was when I still had to come to terms with, okay, now we've got to start this sales process. We're starting with people that I consider friends and colleagues. And this is making me deeply uncomfortable because of that. Who the hell are you to be on stage?
Yeah.
How dare you assume that you can sell things that will help people, especially to friends? Oh, don't
Yeah.
do that. And so just working through that and knowing that I had the support of you, of my business partner, and just opening my mind to like, all right, I'm ready to let go of that old way of thinking. Let's see what happens if I just put myself out there and I don't know what's going to happen. And that's terrifying. Totally get it. Do
Yeah.
it. So, you know, we always swing it toward the worst possible scenario. What if I wind up homeless under a bridge surrounded by feral cats? But what if you do the thing that you're scared of and all of your wildest dreams come true? It's actually a possibility too.
The feral cats thing, now you just made that extra terrifying, Angie. Thanks a lot.
That's
Under
what
a
I'm here
bridge
for.
I
I
can
scare
live
everybody.
with. Feral cats,
Yes.
now I'm scared and don't want to do anything. Cool. All right. Well, this is awesome. And yeah, is there anything else you want to share about this journey before we go?
Working on yourself is, I think, a lifelong journey. I'm not necessarily saying you're going to be in therapy for the rest of your life. Like at some point, you might have developed the tools to feel comfortable to navigate this on your own. I know that I'm working toward that rapidly. But it's not one and done. It's not a hockey stick. A hockey stick is an illusion.
Yeah.
It's really been a whole lot of this and backward steps and forward and down in a tunnel before we got to the. And I'm sure, as we're only a few months into our new business partnership, there's going to be some dips and some curveballs in the
Yeah.
future too. We're better equipped to deal with that because we know, like, okay, here's the head trash that's impacting some of our instinctive decision making. Here's the communication channels that we've got open. We're determined to work together to make each other better. And like, that's brilliance. So
Yeah.
much love.
Yeah, that's so great. Like, yeah, those expectations of like the hockey stick and the instant change, and usually that stuff is put in people's heads by people trying to sell them something. And
Right?
like, and that just causes so much problems because then you find out the reality is
Mhm.
okay, maybe that stuff can kind of happen. Usually there's other stuff behind the scenes you don't see. And
Mhm.
then the people like end up being like, oh, I didn't have this and it wasn't good. And it's like, well, it was good. You just had crazy expectations. That
Every
yeah.
problem that you solve creates another problem, and
Yeah.
you're going to be
Yeah.
solving problems until the day that you die. But
Yep.
hopefully, with this kind of work, looking inward and figuring out what you can do to work on yourself, you're trading your problems now for better problems in the future. Because
Yep.
Lord knows, I would love to have a problem where I'm figuring out where to invest my millions that I just
Yep.
made selling my best-selling book.
Which island is going to get me the best ROI over the next 15 years?
Exactly. Those
That's
are the problems
that's
that
the
I want to have.
problems we're all scaling for, baby.
Hmm.
All right, cool. Okay, this is fantastic. Thank you very much. If you want to find Angie, where do people go to find Angie? What's the to say things?
If you want to hear more ranty, random stories, Permission to Kick Ass podcast, like Brian said, I talked to, it's permissiontoKickass.com or Permission to Kick Ass wherever you stream your podcasts. I like to call it a seat at the bar because those entrepreneurs that go on stage with their big shiny presentations are always at the bar after the event talking about all the ways that things went wrong. And it's actually a super bonding experience. That's how I made all my best business buddies. Brian can attest to that. And if you want to learn more about what I'm doing with my business partner, go over to fastpassivemedia.com. That's where we're creating a system of marketing tools. Because, like most of you that have businesses, y'all are overcomplicating the shit out of everything. You could probably do as much as you're doing with like 10% of the effort. So, like, if you're lazy, easily distractible, ADHD, come to Mama. We're going to help you build it simple and fast and get it out there.
Hell yeah. Again, can't recommend anything Angie does highly enough. So thoroughly encourage you to check her out. Okay, that's all for today. Bye, everybody. Oh, wait, I should probably, if you want more episodes, I haven't been plugging myself on these things.
Plug it.
If you want more episodes, head to mccarthymindsetcoaching.com/join, and you'll get on the list where every Thursday, more of these episodes will come out until we stop doing them. But for now, we're going to keep going for a while. All right, bye.
Bye.